Alright guys, we're back with more fantasy baseball content, and today I'm going to rank every single closer in the league. But first, I want to thank everyone for being back here again, supporting the channel. We hit our goal of 5,000 subscribers before the end of April, and I'm super excited about that. Thank you so much to all of you guys who've been supporting this channel from the beginning. It's been a lot of fun to make these videos and start to really build this fantasy baseball community, and I really appreciate all your guys' continued support. If anyone is here though, watching and not subscribed, please go down there and click that big black button under the video, and also drop this video a like. But now let's get into it. I didn't wind up getting to relief pitcher rankings before the season started. I'm kind of grateful that I didn't do them because the reliever landscape has been so chaotic in the early season. It's nice to be able to watch this dust settle and then kind of evaluate now from what we've already seen as to how guys will be for the rest of the season. In terms of every position in fantasy baseball, I'm not sure there's another one that's as prone to crazy huge swings in value. And that's because everything closers and relief pitchers in general do is so on the razor's edge. It's such small sample sizes. Everything is so magnified because it's tiny outings only a couple times a week, and all the spotlight and pressure is on those guys. But we still have learned a lot so far, and I'm here to help you guys sort through who the best relief pitchers will be for the rest of the season. And starting with tier 1, the unquestioned best closer in baseball right now on his own is Mason Miller of the Athletics. There's no other closer even close to him. He's striking out almost 45% of the batters he's seen since the beginning of last season, and it's up over 60% so far this season. And that comes while he's walking very few batters. But even past those results, which are ridiculously good, it's Miller's stuff that puts him on a different level. He's an alien that can sit 101 miles an hour with his fastball, that has also touched 104 miles an hour this season, and an upper 80s slider that is just completely wicked. Also, I mentioned the low walk rate so far this season. That was not always the case for Miller, and it seems like he's made some big gains in his command in the early part of the season. I'm not sure if that will or will not stick. It's still very early. It's still a pretty small sample size for all of these closers I'm going to talk about. But right now, having a 3% walk rate with his stuff and his ability to miss bats, it makes him a true alien. And also a huge deal for Miller right now, the A's are not terrible. They're almost borderline getting kind of okay. The lineup is good. They have leads to protect. They're certainly going to win more games than they did each for the last 2 seasons, and that means more save opportunities for him. There's no other closer in his stratosphere right now. Okay, now moving on to tier 2, we have Josh Hader, Emmanuel Clase, and Edwin Diaz. First up is Hader, who I think should be ahead of these other 2 guys, but still not in the same tier as Miller. Him and Miller get a lot of credit for being the only elite closers heading into the season that are still pitching at an elite level. Hader still has a high strikeout rate. He's still missing tons of bats. The Astros are still a good team. His velocity is a little bit down in the early part of the season, but he doesn't really need that much velocity because his pitches move so much, and I still think it's early enough that he can warm up and get back to that peak velocity. Hader's elite, nothing to worry about there. But now we're on to Emmanuel Clase, who I'm sure is the guy that a lot of you are here to see. And spoiler alert, sorry to kill the drama, but I think he's mostly totally fine, with the one big caveat being if he's actually healthy, because a shoulder issue has cropped up for Clase over the past couple of days, and that is cause for concern. Maybe it's just the gateway to a phantom IL stint so he can kind of get himself together. But also, something else I've noticed with Clase, and I heard Eno Saris talking about in the Rates and Barrels podcast, is that his vertical release point has kind of gradually come down a bit this season. So that doesn't exactly mean he is injured, but sometimes when guys are pitching injured, they will find different release points. So you have to kind of pick the spot where your arm actually doesn't hurt to release the ball. So something to think about. If he is hurt, that's a big problem. He's way back at the end of these rankings, and Cade Smith becomes an elite closer, the Guardian setup man. But back to Clase and why he's been so bad so far this season. It's really just a function of the kind of pitcher he is, especially relative to these other closers. Most of these guys I'm going to talk about, especially these guys at the top, your Miller, your Hader, your Diaz. These are guys that are prolific strikeout guys, where Clase is always been much more of a soft contact guy. It worked for him in an amazing way last year when he had one of the best relief pitcher seasons we've seen in a couple of decades. But bottom line, the more balls they're put in play, the more chances that the hitter has to get lucky. Where if you're a guy like Miller, again, or even a guy like Diaz who struggled, we'll get to in a bit, who can still strike out a third, sometimes 40% of the hitters you're facing, there's less opportunities for your opponents to get lucky. And that's kind of what's happening to Clase this year. Just lots of contact and lots of balls finding holes that maybe don't deserve to be. But at the same time, he is still striking out fewer batters and giving up a bit harder contact, especially on his famous color that's always been his bread and butter. I want to shout out Lance Brazowski, who also has a great YouTube channel, for a tweet he had about Emmanuel Clase's color locations this year. Last season, he was using that color to go front door and right-handed batters. What I mean by front door is that the way that his color moves, which is to his glove side, and for a right-handed batter into the batter's box, he'd start that color on the batter's right hip and kind of pick off the inside part of the plate with it, getting a called strike or a bad swing or some weak contact the inside of the bat. This year, it seems like he's tried to throw that color more on the outside of the plate, but with that, he's still trying to throw some colors to front door, but it seems like the fact that he's kind of mixing both sides of the plate now is hurt his execution on that front door color, which is a really tough pitch to throw. Not many players in the league can do it, so it made Clase that much better that he could do it so effectively. So again, I think at the end of the day, it's probably just a little bit of Clase trying some new things, them not working, and also just the yin and yang of the good luck versus the bad luck between this year and last year, where a couple extra balls are just finding their way through the hole. But also, as we step back a little bit, it's probably a good lesson for all of us in our drafts moving forward, years and years down the line, that when a closer like Clase is, one, this valuable in drafts, it's probably a really good guy to fade just in general. High-ranked closers are never really a good bet. But two, when that closer is someone that's ranked this highly and doesn't have a prolific strikeout rate, it's almost never going to be worth it. So again, not worried about Clase unless the injury is serious right now, but just understanding that the ceiling is never going to be like what we saw last season. Now, the last guy in this tier, Edwin Diaz, might be a bit of a surprise as well because he has been pretty erratic to start this season with an ugly ERA that's near 5, but I still don't really buy it. Still think he is an elite closer. His command has really been all over the place so far this season, but he did this at the beginning of last season. And Edwin is the kind of pitcher whose command kind of goes in and out sometimes, and that's okay. He's still striking tons of hitters out, and a lot so far this season has been made of shrinking velocity for Diaz, but it's pretty much in line with where he was last April. Again, I understand there's some bigger velocity bands. He has thrown a couple 93-mile-an-hour fastballs that, especially me as a Mets fan, have really scared me. But the way he's still missing bats tells me this is still an elite pitcher. And again, right now for Edwin Diaz, he has been victim a little bit to the home run ball. Right now he has a higher home run per fly ball rate than he had in 2019 in by far the worst season of his career. To me, things like bad batted ball luck, a lot of balls flying out of the yard, and then command, something that goes in and out. Right now, they're both out. I think they both come back in. Edwin, to me, is still an elite closer. Now, moving on to tier 3 here. It gets a little interesting. We have Robert Suarez, Andres Munoz, Yohan Duran, Jeff Hoffman, and 2 of the real struggling legacy picks here, Devin Williams and Ryan Helsley. Starting off with Suarez, I think he's been the best closer in baseball this season besides Mason Miller, at least one that's pitched the best so far. He's leading the league in saves, which is amazing for all of us in our fantasy teams. But it's really hard to forget he did this almost exactly to a T last season, where he was one of the best closers in baseball all the way until we got to August. And he really ran out of the gas and was a disaster at the end of the season. That kind of made his draft cost go down this year because the Padres have a really good bullpen. It seems really likely that if Suarez's struggles continued into the regular season, that he would be unseated in that role. But that has not happened. He looks amazing. And the most encouraging thing for Suarez, the reason he's so high up on these ranks, is because he has had some material changes that have made him a better pitcher this season. He still has a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, lives at the top of the zone, and a nasty 98-mile-an-hour two-seam fastball that has tons of lift and is a great wrinkle for that four-seamer. But then the big thing that's changed Suarez as a pitcher this year is his changeup. It's about 2 miles an hour slower compared to last season, and he killed a little bit of that pitch's vert, which really just means it has a little bit more drop now. But the big thing is he's added 2 full inches of arm side run on that pitch. It moves a ton. It's been so effective for him. He's basically throwing it as often as his fastball against left-handed batters because that changeup is running away from those lefties. They can't touch it. The biggest problem for Suarez last year was he didn't really have any wrinkles in his repertoire, so it was just fastball, 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 fastball over and over again, overexerted himself, got predictable, ran out of the gas, got crushed at the end of the season. Now with this changeup, his strikeout rate is way up, and he looks like one of the best closers in the league. Same with Andres Munoz, who doesn't really have any new wrinkles this year, but stuff-wise, he's up there with the best of the best. He's a 99-mile-an-hour fastball and a wicked gyro slider that always acts as his primary pitch, and the thing is disgusting. He always has walked a few too many batters, though, to be considered someone who can move up into the elite tier, but Munoz is gross. Same goes for Yohan Duran, who again, pure stuff-wise, I don't know if anyone comes close to him, especially when you consider the depth of his repertoire. He has a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, an obscene splinker, which I've talked about before. It's kind of a fusion pitch between a sinker and a splitter that comes in like a splitter but with way more velocity. An awesome knuckle curveball and a new sweeper he's been using this year that looks gross. But the Minnesota Twins have been a disaster in the early part of the season, and that's pulled Duran's value down because he's just simply not getting that many save opportunities, which that probably will even out over the course of the season. But as of right now, it seems like that team will not be very good, and that does hurt him a bit compared to some of the elite closers. His command has also been very bad in the early part of the season, but again, command goes in and out, especially in short samples like this, so I'm willing to give a guy like Duran the benefit of the doubt. But again, it's been bad. It basically has more walks than strikeouts. Huge red flag there. But one more time, the stuff looks amazing, so I'm continuing to trust him. Then we have Jeff Hoffman, who, apart from Robert Suarez, probably is the biggest riser in this entire list in the early part of the season. He's basically been the 3rd best reliever in baseball behind Miller and Suarez so far, and he's just been crazy nasty. And this is now about 3 seasons in a row where Hoffman has been this guy with an awesome fastball, splitter, slider. He strikes everybody out. He doesn't walk anybody, no hard contact. You really can't have a better start to the season than Hoffman's had so far. And again, coupled with the last 2 years he had in the Phillies, he does look like one of the best relievers in baseball. He got hit a lot during draft season because there were some injury concerns that were flagged during his physicals with both the Orioles and the Braves, and just the fact that we didn't know what team he was going to sign with, so we didn't know if he was going to be a closer. But he's the unquestioned closer in Toronto, and he's a smash so far. Now it gets a little interesting with Devin Williams, who's probably the most interesting player in this whole list and someone I'm genuinely nervous about. All right, guys, huge disclaimer here. Recorded this video Friday afternoon. Devin Williams had another epic collapse on Friday night. Yankee Stadium was chanting, "We want Weaver." At this point, it does seem like he's not getting the next save opportunity for the Yankees, so with that, he would move down at least a tier or 2 in this video, but the analysis is still good here. He just turned 30. He's on a new team with new expectations, new added pressure, ton more eyeballs, way more distractions in New York City compared to Milwaukee, and some scary and genuine downturns in both his stuff and command. He's never exactly been an overpowering pitcher with a fastball that only ever got to 95, 96 miles an hour. Last year was more 94, 95. This year, is more 93, 94, which again, steps backward for the last couple of seasons now. But still early, still could get warm, still get back up 94, 95. I get it, it's April, it's been cold in New York, but you still don't like to see that, especially when it's a guy who didn't have elite velocity to begin with. But even more so than that, again, his command has been horrific in the early part of the season. He's always been a guy that walked his fair share of batters, but this year that walk rate has spiked hard, and it's getting to a point where it's pretty untenable and approaching his strikeout rate. But then it honestly gets weirder than that for Williams, where opposing hitters' contact rates against him are way up too. For years and years, he's made his mark on the league as being one of the prolific swing and miss guys out there. But this year's whiff rate is not even league average so far. Then on top of that, something that is so weird and kind of shocked me when I was going through and making this video is that for some reason, hitters are making a ton more contact against Williams on pitches that are outside of the strike zone. Last season, hitters only made contact with 44% of the pitches they swung at against Williams that were outside the strike zone. This year, it's over 70%. That really doesn't compute in my mind. And even more weird things are happening for him with pitches that are just barely out of the strike zone. He's only forcing about 30% swings and misses in that pitch, where the league average is 44%, and last year, hitters swung and missed at pitches that he threw outside the zone 56%, which again, you can see that from the outside contact rates I just talked about. But then also, when hitters swing at pitches out of the strike zone, they have a 231 batting average against Williams right now. And you might think a 231 batting average is not very good because it isn't very good objectively, but on pitches out of the strike zone, the league average is under 200 and his career averages are way under 100. So for some reason right now, when Williams throws a pitch out of the strike zone that hitters are swinging at, they're making much better contact and just simply not swinging and missing as often. Part of that's also more foul balls, staying in longer at bats, and waiting for him to make a mistake, which he's made a few of those this season. It's really all weird, and I'm sure a lot of this is a lot of batted ball, bad luck on Williams, just balls finding their way through, a couple bloops that drop in. But also with that, there was some fear, especially on my end for Williams this season, going to Yankee Stadium, a place where it's easy to hit home runs. Williams has had this bad of a start, and he hasn't even allowed a home run yet. That's telling me he might be objectively getting a little bit lucky on his balls in play too. So there's a lot of things moving against him. The command's not that good, the stuff isn't as sharp, and the Yankees have Luke Weaver waiting in the wings, who they know can be a plus closer. I'm still ranking him highly on the legacy and the fact that I know he's going to get right. He's been too good for too long not to. But of all of the guys I've talked about so far, I'm the most nervous for. Similarly with the next guy, Ryan Helsley, he's walking the world right now. He still sits 100 miles an hour, still has super nasty stuff. He's never been a great command guy, but again, right now, walking about a fifth of the batters he's faced, that's untenable. You cannot be a successful pitcher like that. And something weird I think has affected him is Helsley picked up a new cutter this season. That's been a good weapon for him, a good wrinkle, using it about 15% of times against left-handed batters, but it seems to be affecting his fastball shape because Williams always had this really nice cut-riding fastball, like the kind of desirable fastball shape that pitchers want. But now that fastball's kind of overcutting. It's almost moving like too much to his glove side. And I heard Garrett Cole talk about something like this a few years ago when he developed his cutter, that it made it difficult to differentiate the shapes and the intent when he was throwing his cutter versus fastball. And it seems like that cutter is seeping into Helsley's execution of his fastball right now. And I think that's kind of the whole thing. I think the cutter is kind of changing the way he's throwing his other pitches. And I think that's the reason his command's been so bad. He's not as good at manipulating that fastball of how he used to be. But again, I think he works it out as he gets more experience with that pitch, or maybe even just gets rid of that pitch so we can just get back to the fastball and slider. They're both amazing and made him one of the best closers in the league over the past few seasons. Okay, now we're moving on to tier 4. We have Justin Martinez, Tanner Scott, Jose Alvarado, Felix Bautista, Raisel Iglesias, and Kyle Finnegan. So starting off with Justin Martinez at the top. He is one of these guys like Miller and Duran who have just absolutely hands down some of the nastiest stuff in the league. His fastball sits around 101 miles an hour with crazy movement, with a sinker that has crazy movement as well, and a splitter that behaves like a 90-mile-an-hour knuckleball, considering how little that thing spins and again how hard he throws at 90 miles an hour. It has the makings to be possibly the best pitch in all of baseball. And when Martinez is right mixing those three pitches, it kind of looks like witchcraft. The only thing that has stopped him in the past, again, he's still a very young pitcher, is consistency with his command. So far this season, the command's been a lot better. The walk rate has shrunk a lot. We're hoping for that, but again, it's still early. Command can wax and wane very easily, especially when guys throw pitches that, again, look like witchcraft. The other thing that was working against Martinez is that he was sharing the closer duty in Arizona with AJ Puck, but Puck is on the IL, and it possibly could be for a long time. So Martinez is likely the guaranteed guy there, but we haven't seen enough save opportunities since Puck went out to know for sure if he's the guy or if Arizona still wants to mix it up a little bit. But if he is the guy and the command sticks, Martinez is a guy that has a legitimate chance to go all the way to tier 2 on this closer list. Next, we have Tanner Scott in the Dodgers, and there were a lot of people in the fantasy circles who didn't really think that Scott would be the closer, or at least a full-time closer on the Dodgers. We also signed a 4-year, $70 million contract, and they're using him as basically their full-time closer right now. So that's a big check mark for his role. Then the other thing that's always worked against Scott is his command. He was borderline unpitchable a few years ago, and he was walking similar to the rates I've told you guys about before, about 20% of batters, a rate that you can never be successful with. But he got that in check really well over the last 2 seasons, especially last year when he was one of the best relievers in baseball at the Marlins, got traded to the Padres, and was one of the best relievers again through the end of the season. But there's something very weird happening right now with Scott, which I thought would make me very excited about him, but it's also giving me a little bit pause, where he is not, at the time of recording this video on Friday afternoon, walked a batter yet this season. That's right, 0 walks, 0.00% walk rate so far in 2025 for Tanner Scott, which should be amazing. But at the same time, he's forcing many fewer swings and misses, and he's getting hammered on his balls in play when in the past he used to be almost impossible to barrel up or hit the ball hard against. He's also been a guy in the past who really likes to throw his fastball high, and as a lefty with high velocity, that's kind of a rare thing, with a high riding fastball at the top of the zone. But the Dodgers, as an organization, aren't really into high fastballs. There's a much better chance a high fastball gets hit at the ballpark than a low fastball, and the Dodgers, being so much better than everybody else, fear homers more than anything. So they've moved his fastball locations down a little bit this year. So it's kind of weird, and all that weirdness together means I don't want to move him up past this spot on the rankings. I really just have to see more of it, if he can actually keep this command in check, and if the quality of contact actually changes, or if we're just getting a little bit fixated on a lot of hard contact in a small sample. Also, because the Dodgers, while Scott is the unquestioned closer, he's not the 100% closer like other guys would be on some other teams. Blake Treinen already siphoned a few saves off him in the early part of the season. Now Treinen's out, and I'm sure Kirby Yates will do the same, who's been disgusting so far. So again, Scott's really good, very safe, very reliable closer, but some weird things going on. It's kind of keeping him in this lower tier and outside the top 10. Next up, we got Jose Alvarado, who's fully taken over the closer job in the Phillies, where he beat out Matt Strahm, who probably is objectively better than Alvarado, but he's kind of more of their lefty fireman, comes into the toughest spot in the game. Then Orion Kerkering, who is again nasty, but doesn't have a great plan of attack against left-handed batters, and also Jordan Romano, who some people thought was going to be the closer heading into the season, but he has really stunk so far. And Alvarado is really such a tough at-bat. Big lefty, throws 100 miles an hour with tons of movement on that sinker, plus a nasty cutter and a new curveball he's introduced this year to give himself a new wrinkle in the middle of his repertoire as a pitch that moves vertically when he's such an east-west guy in general. I really like Alvarado. The Phillies have pretty much affirmed that he is their closer, getting by far the bulk of their save opportunities. But the thing that keeps him down this list too and outside of the top 10 is in the past, Alvarado's had major hot streaks and major cold streaks. It all comes back to his command, especially again as such a major east-west guy. He can lose a little bit. If that command goes, so does this role. And the Phillies, like I said before, do have a couple other options to close games in Kerkering if he can figure out lefties, and Strahm. So really like Alvarado, but proceed with a hair of caution. Then we have Felix Bautista on the Orioles. Seems like he's still kind of shaking the rust off after Tommy John surgery. The fastball's down 97 miles an hour from 99 miles an hour. He's not getting the same swing and miss on it. He's also not getting as much drop on his splitter, and the command is off. But once again, I'm going to chalk this up as rust to start because I can see the potential in Bautista, and he has that closer role on lock in Baltimore still, but give him another month, wait and see, because it really hasn't been the super elite guy, especially that we'd come to know until he had Tommy John surgery in 2023. Next is Raisel Iglesias, the old vet at 35 years old, and really it might be starting to go for Raisel after all these years. His velocity's down in the early part of the season, his command is in and out, and again, really just looks kind of old. But he is still the unquestioned closer in Atlanta's bullpen, most because that bullpen is horrific. And also, Raisel did this a little bit at the beginning of last season when his strikeout rate was really, really low through April and May. I was out on him. I dumped him in a few places, then he really proved me wrong and had another classic Raisel Iglesias season. So I'm thinking maybe he does that again. I've learned my lesson to distrust Raisel. He's still in the top 15 closers in baseball with the opportunity to jump up a tier if he can kind of regain that youth for a little bit. But if this continues, Raisel Iglesias is someone that can really drop off fast. He's one of these closers where his value is on the real edge right now. We can go all the way good or all the way bad really quickly in either direction. Now, last pitcher in this tier is Kyle Finnegan on the Nationals. Finnegan's a funny case because this offseason, the Nationals both non-tendered him and then left him out there as a free agent all the way until spring training began, finally offering him a contract at the end of February. But he's been one of the league leaders in saves in the early part of the season, a great bargain in drafts if you took the risk on him, and just a totally fine closer. This stuff's good, not great, nowhere near the level of some of these other guys I've mentioned. But again, he's good. He's been this ninth inning role for a few years. He knows what he's doing there. It could get back quickly. Again, the Nationals, who knew the most about him, didn't even tender him a contract and then waited until spring training had already begun to offer him a cheap one-year deal. But they don't really have a lot of other great closing options in that bullpen, which is why they got him back. Not much competition for Finnegan, who I expect to just coast as a really good closer too for most of the season. Now, next up in tier 5, we have Kenley Jansen, Luke Jackson, Peter Fairbanks, and Aroldis Chapman. And these are guys with closer roles, but like we don't really feel that great about. First up, Jansen, who I do feel the best about of any guy in this tier for sure. And a big reason for that is the Angels and Ron Washington run an old school system over there, and Kenley's their closer, so he's going to continue to be their closer. Despite having Ben Joyce, who is hurt right now, but we'll be back in that bullpen who can throw 104, 105 miles an hour. And Ryan Zephyrdjon, who's completely nasty and going to be one of the biggest relievers you guys are going to hear about as this season moves on, because again, the guy's gross. But back to Jansen, he's just really never been bad. That cutter's still sensational. It's really hard to square up. He is so unbelievably reliable, but him with his age, there's always the injury risk, so I couldn't put him on tier 4 just because I don't know if he's going to get through this whole season healthy. Next up is Luke Jackson, the Rangers. Bruce Bochy, very similar to Ron Washington in this sense of like old school guy. This is my closer. This is the guy I'm going to roll with. He did the same thing last year with Kirby Yates. He became one of the most valuable closers in all fantasy baseball. Jackson's stuff is nowhere near the level of Yates's, and also nowhere near the level of basically every other closer on this list, but he's been fine in the early going. It's not a ton of strikeouts. It's a couple bad outings, but a lot more really good ones than bad ones. And this bullpen doesn't really have anybody to take this job. They have Chris Martin, who's been a really good reliever his entire career, but has only 15 saves in 9 seasons as a high leverage reliever. Some guys are just not cut out for the 9th inning. It seems like Martin is not a 9th inning guy. And also Robert Garcia, who really is just their best lefty in the pen. He's kind of been in that role so far this season. So again, while Jackson's not exciting, he's the kind of guy in fantasy baseball you have to trust because he is getting every single save, and this Rangers team is really good. Next, we have Peter Fairbanks, who's kind of always been a little bit flimsy, a little bit paper mache in his career, but with nasty stuff. Now that stuff has taken a few steps back, the fastball velocity's down, the pitches aren't moving as much as he gets older and has dealt with more injuries, and the Rays will always have a wealth of options at the back of that bullpen. Mason Montgomery's lefty who throws 100. Edwin Uceda got some closer reps last year and was good despite struggling a bit out of the gate. I think I don't like Fairbanks as much as other people, but just seeing how bad that stuff is and seeing how many other guys the Rays could have, and just knowing how injury prone he is, the fact that he could get Wally pipped, get hurt, lose his job, never get it back, it's hard for me to rank Fairbanks that highly. And then lastly, Aroldis Chapman. He's still a closer and also a total dirtbag, but he still throws really hard, walks tons of hitters. Fenway's also not a great place to pitch. That definitely hurts his value. And also they have Justin Slayton as a setup man in that bullpen, who's a super nasty reliever, could easily take this closer job if anything were to happen to Chapman. Now lastly is tier 6. Guys who kind of are closers, kind of could not be closers, kind of already might not be closers. And that's Carlos Estevez, Ryan Walker, Trevor McGill, and Ryan Presley. First up is Estevez. It has not been a good start to the season. Had an injury towards the end of spring training. Doesn't look right so far. Not striking as many guys out. Walking many more hitters. And the Royals have Lucas Erceg in their bullpen, who traded for last year at the trade deadline and was their closer down the stretch and is super nasty. He's going to push Estevez for saves soon. I don't know when it's going to be, but it will happen for sure this season. Then Ryan Walker, who's really struggled out of the gate. Doesn't exactly have traditional closer stuff. More of like a medium velocity sinker guy, which again, that's not closer. We're looking for 100 miles an hour swing and miss out of the closer. And he's already ceded some save opportunities in the past week to Camilo Doval, who is also very inconsistent. So I think that Ryan Walker will get more save opportunities, but the fact that the Giants were this quick to not pull the trigger on him, but at least give him a couple days off from the closer role, means we probably have more of a part-time save situation there in San Francisco. So Walker's not really a safe closer like we thought he was during draft season. Same goes for Trevor McGill, who struggled mightily out of the gate, and the Brewers have so many other options to close in that bullpen. One of the deepest bullpens in baseball, between the flame-throwing Abner Uribe, Brian Hudson, Yoel Payamps, Jared Koenig, and the newly called up Craig Yoho. The Brewers have a wealth of options there, so if McGill continues to struggle like he struggled so far, he's not going to be the closer in Milwaukee. Tough hold right now. If you do need to prospect saves, not even a good bullpen to prospect them with, because we don't know who's going to get this next shot. They have literally 5 guys who could be closing. Uribe has the best stuff, but he's been pitching in the middle innings. I also forgot to mention Nick Mears. He might be the next guy who gets up there too. There's just so many guys in his bullpen. It's hard to remember them all. Now lastly, we have Ryan Presley in the Cubs, who they traded for in the offseason, who looks kind of old, has not pitched very well. Strikeouts are down, walks are up. Has converted a bunch of saves though. We give him credit for that. He has experience in this role, 9th inning. He didn't get a save opportunity against the Dodgers last series when the Cubs played them. They called on Porter Hodge instead in a 1-run game, and Hodge got Ohtani and Mookie Betts out to end that game. The Cubs did say after the game that Presley was dealing with a knee issue. That's why he didn't pitch. But if you just watch a couple videos of each of these guys pitching right now, Hodge is blatantly better than Presley. It's not even close. He is so much nastier, and there's a really good chance at some point this year Hodge gets that role because they trust him down the stretch last year, and he was good in it. He's going to be the closer on this team. If you're looking to try to figure out the next great closer in baseball right now, you have room to stash someone, it's going to be Porter Hodge. Okay, now there are 6 bullpens I haven't covered yet. I'm not even putting them on the official tiered rankings because really not a reliever in there is really worth it, especially most of your 10 or 12 team leagues. First is the Marlins, where Calvin Fauché is the nastiest guy, is kind of the closer, but Jesus Sunoco's gotten some saves. Anthony Bender had like a little quick spell as a closer, just kind of a mess. Fauché could distinguish himself and get into that last tier of guys because the stuff is pretty good. That Marlins team is bad. I don't know how many games they're going to win, but again, if there's someone, I do kind of like Fauché. Then you have the Tigers with Tommy Kahnle, who just throws changeup after changeup. I think Will Vest is much better. If Vest gets the unquestioned closer job, he jumps up too, but until he gets it, I don't really like Kahnle that much. Same with Emilio Pagan in Cincinnati. He has been good, and he is getting all the save opportunities there, so maybe he should be on the next tier up, but that plays a tough place to pitch. Alexis Diaz has been horrible too, really fell out of his closer real fast. I don't know if I trust anyone there. Same with the Pirates and Dennis Santana. David Bednar has been really bad for over a year. I love Bednar, one of my favorite pitchers to watch in baseball, but he just hasn't been able to rediscover it. Another disclaimer here, because on Friday night, David Bednar came in the game for the Pirates and got the save against the Dodgers. I definitely want to see it again. Need to see some consistency out of Bednar, but he could easily jump back up into a closer that's tier 4-ish if he's ready to do it again. And Dan Santana is just not very good. I don't know. Like, if you trust Dan Santana, if you really need saves, get him. Same with Pagan, same with Kahnle. But just know you're really cruising for a bruise, and something bad can happen in outing with these guys. And then we have the Rockies and the White Sox. Seth Halverson's gross on the Rockies, but no Rockies closer is ever worth rostering in fantasy. And the White Sox are such a dumpster fire, doesn't even matter. Now I'm going to talk about Jordan Leisure and the fact he does have pretty good stuff, because we don't know who's getting their save opportunities or how many they're ever going to get. But all right, guys, thank you so much. That was the closer rankings. Please sound off in the comments. Let me know if I'm still overrating Emmanuel Clase, if I'm underrating Devin Williams, if I'm crazy about Edwin Diaz. Let me know what you guys think about these. And also, if you guys are playing specifically in saves and holds leagues, ask me some questions because I play in a couple of those leagues myself. I love leagues that count holds. I got good knowledge on the middle relief. And lastly, before I let you guys go, a housekeeping thing. I've been kind of moving around the schedule a little bit in the early part just to kind of see what works well with you guys and what can work well with my work schedule. And I really think I found a groove uploading on Saturday. I like the Saturday upload, and I was trying to do Thursday in the early part of the season. And we have been really good with that waiver wire video every single Monday. You guys will get another waiver video this Monday, but I might change it up a little bit just to experiment. Again, this is still the infancy of this channel, so I might kind of switch it up and do a video like a ranking, a panic meter, a sell high, a buy low. That might start to be my new Tuesday night video, whereas I'll reserve Saturday for the waiver wire video. I might experiment with it, guys. I'll let you know because a lot of people's waivers do run on Sunday. I've heard you guys in the comments complaining about that. So I might change the waiver to be a Saturday video and do the regular video in the week on Monday or Tuesday. So, but otherwise, thank you so much for being here. If you are still watching and not subscribed, please go down there, click that subscribe button. Also drop this video a like. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.